Welcome to the Layman Seminary. We're continuing our series on my debate preparation that because I'm going to be debating CJ Cox or Synagogue on November 5th. And so Janet is helping me because right now I'm working 12-hour shifts. And so whenever I get home, us going through these older videos, like this is from about a year ago, whenever I first interacted with CJ on some of these issues. And so I think it's a good area to start our debate preparation. Janet and I already prayed, so we're going to pick up right where we left off in the last video, where I'm basically explaining James chapter 2 to him. Okay. This is the issue about personal favoritism, prejudice and discrimination, if you will. Now we have an explanatory statement going into about personal favoritism. For if a man comes into your assembly with a gold ring and dressed in fine clothes, and there also comes a poor man in dirty clothes, and you pay special attention to the one who's wearing the clothes. I'm just skipping through because I don't want to take a lot of time. Have you not made distinctions among yourselves and become judges with evil motives? Okay. Listen, my beloved brethren. Okay. He doesn't just call them brethren, he calls them beloved brethren. This is the indication of his tone here. Did not God choose the poor of this world to be rich in faith and heirs of the kingdom which he promised to those who love him? Now, when it says talking about the heirs of the kingdom, I believe that scripture teaches two types of inheritance. All believers inherit God, but not all believers inherit the kingdom in the sense of ruling and reigning with Christ and to the same degree. Because according to Romans 8, it says, if we suffer, we will reign with him. But continuing on.
Wait, are you saying that verse 4 there at the end, I guess? Or wait, go back up. Wait, never mind. Verse 5. Listen, my beloved brethren, did not God choose the poor of this world to be rich in faith and heirs of the kingdom? Are you saying the ones in view here are being promised something more than just being saved, but like extra privileges? And so that doesn't include.
So if we were to use our chart for inheritance, and we would have positional, experiential, and ultimate. And so we could say the positional inheritance would be salvation. Experiential inheritance would be the reward. Or you could even say that you're given it when you get a glorified body and you're ruling with reign. So you could even call it ultimate if you wanted to. But I'm just showing how the chart needs to be used, or these words need to be used to clarify what type of inheritance is in view.
Everyone, this isn't
what, Janet?
Nothing. I was thinking about to emphasize or to clarify.
Okay.
Describing the saved period. Is that what you're saying?
What I'm saying is that when it's talking about kingdom here, it's not talking about heaven. It's talking about the Davidic kingdom.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm premillennial. Okay.
Me too.
All right.
Okay, I see.
Yeah, so he's talking about that. He's talking about how God chose the poor of this world to be rich in faith and heirs of the king, because now that they've been kicked out of their struggling, and he's reminding them about don't look down on the poor, and don't show favoritism to the rich, because the rich will tend to exploit and use their power. And it says, but you have dishonored the poor man. Is it not the rich who oppress you and personally drag you to the court? Now, this is a general statement, probably referring to the unbelievers and stuff, to remind them, look, y'all are living in a pagan culture, even though you're Jews and stuff, and y'all know what oppression is like. How could you do this to each other? It said, do they not blaspheme the fair name by which you have been called? If, however, you are fulfilling the royal law, according to the scripture, you shall love your neighbors yourself, you're doing well. But if you show partiality, you're committing sin and are convicted by the law as transgressions. For, here's an explanation, for whoever keeps the whole law and yet stumbles in one point is becoming guilty of all. And then it's keep going on and it's talking about the whole law. And so he says, so speak and act as those who are judged by the law of liberty. And here's the other explanatory clause. For judgment will be merciless to one who's shown no mercy, and mercy triumphs over judgment. And then he says in 14, this is the key. What use is it? Or some translators say, what good is it? Okay, my brethren, if someone says he has faith, but he has no works. Now, this passage is not saying that he has positional faith. He's already recognized that they're brethren. He's saying, what good is it you to claim to have correct doctrine, but you don't apply your correct doctrine? You want to pride yourself. You have a Jewish background. You're a believer. You pride God in the Shema and all of that stuff, but you're not taking care of the widows and orphans. Instead, you're favoring the rich. It says, if a brother or sister without clothing, it's clarifying right here. Oh, and another thing is right here. Can that faith save him? This word save is not talking about positionally. It's talking about experientially. And the other issue is when it says, can that faith save him? It's saying, can your faith be useful to anybody else? It's not saying that the individual that is being hypocritical or not showing love is not saved. It's saying, can this person be useful to someone else? Okay, so keep this in mind. All right. So when most people read this, can that faith save him? They're taking to him as you. Can that faith save you? In other words, if you have a dead faith, if you're not applying your faith, if you're not walking in sanctification, if you're not, doing all these things, then how could you be positionally saved? But the him is referring to somebody that's in need. That's why the next statement says, if a brother or a sister is without clothing in need of daily food, and one of you says to them, right, plural and stuff. So that's the important thing that's going on here. How can you help the widow and the orphan and the one that's struggling? So 15, it clarifies, if a brother or sister is without clothing and in need of daily food, and one of you says to them, go in peace, be warm and be filled, yet you do not give them what is necessary for the body, what use is that? So we see this what use thing has showed up 3 times, all in their context. Even so, here's the explanation. Faith, if it has no works, is dead being by itself. Now you see the word dead right there? There's a textual variant there. Let me see if I can find it. I think that's the place it is in James 2:17.
Can I say something and then see how you respond about
yes,
that?
Sir. Yes, sir.
So it seemed at one point, and I don't mean to be accusatory here, but it kind of felt like you were presuming the conclusion a little bit there for a second, at least. But I may have missed something. But on as far as the can that save him? It sounds like
that's Jamie, the Seventh-day Adventist.
Yeah.
Person in view is the one who is when it's talking about what you do and how it helps other people, and because if you just say things and then don't actually do them, the safe that can that faith save someone? The someone is the one who's saying but not doing, and so it seems like it'd be hard to take that context.
Well, looking above, it seems to save him from the law. Like
right,
above,
save from temporal judgment.
The cops come in, your faith is the Romans come busting in your door. Your faith isn't going to save you from them, from that what's going on there.
Okay,
it's the divine discipline. Them holding to the doctrines of Christianity is no use, and it's not going to keep a person from being divinely disciplined right there.
But as far, it almost seems like it's taking another concept here, because like, what use is it, my brother, if someone says he has faith but he has no, because then the conclusion is that it's a dead faith, and that dead faith seems to be a rhetoric question here in 14 that's saying that the answer would be no. Because it's dead, right?
Dead refers to being non-productive, being non-useful. So the repeated phrase being useful, and if I remember right, I'd have to run my exegetical guide to get all my critical apparatuses up. But there's a textual variant there in some of the manuscripts where the word for dead is is not useful or worthless or whatever. But even if there is no text or variant there, I'm just trying to be quick, guys.
I'm fine with that variant. I mean, I think that saying essentially the same thing. It's just saying it's not active. It's not really doing what it's meant to do or something, I guess.
Right. And like I said, this is talking about, if I will, using the term experiential faith. In other words, we're saved whenever we place our faith in Christ. That's positionally. But after you're saved, you still have to exercise faith. And if you don't exercise faith, you're just not walking, But the point is that a lot of times we think we see the word.
Excuse me,
automatically it's talking about when
I let Papi out.
Okay, we're having cat troubles. In my last video, my cat was bothering, interrupting, and now Janet's cat's interrupting and stuff. So,
This one interrupting so much.
okay. So now everybody knows the troublemaker. Janet pointed out the troublemaker, the problem. Okay. So keep that in mind. If you're a troublemaker, Janet will expose you.
I was thinking about you're calling me cat, so maybe I am the troublemaker.
You're a cat.
I am an A cat. Okay.
You're the cat in the sense that you're my cat. But anyway, when a person got saved, but there's places in Scripture where it's referring to our experience, our walk of faith, and so this is about applying the Christianity, and their Christianity at that time was the old Testament. He's going back to the royal law, the law of liberty, based on progressive revelation. That's what they had at that time. So it says, but someone may well see. Okay, so this section right here opens up with diatribe. May well say, not see. Okay. The way diatribe works is you'll have someone that it'll say, someone will say. And then it always ends with, oh, foolish man. And so, let me see if I can find it right here. You foolish fellow. Okay. Now, I would like to do more research on this. I mean, there's other views on this within free grace. So let me just give you my observations as I'm looking at this. Someone will say, you have faith and I have works. Show me your faith without the works, and I will show you my faith by my works. Now, the whole issue here is it depends where you put the quotations. A lot of people in the quote, a lot of translations in the quotations right here. And then they think James is coming back in and rebuking this. But it's very possible this person is saying this part as well.
I see what you're saying. That's interesting. I never even considered that. That's interesting.
Yeah. And free grace deals with both of these issues. I mean, number one,
are you saying they didn't have those they didn't have quotations in the Greek?
There's things that you could do to indicate a quotation. Like sometimes a haughty clause could be used like to indicate quotations and stuff, but no. But what indicates what's going on here is this diatribe structure where you have someone will say. So this is like we're talking and we say, well, the Lordship Salvationist will say this about this, but this is how free grace responds. So it's very possible that this is all the quotation of the imagined objector or the opponent or whatever, the foolish man. So whenever we make this statement, you believe that God is one, you do well. The demons also believe and shudder. It's very possible whenever people use this passage to try to refute the previous passage, they're actually quoting the wrong person. Because James,
that's scary. That's so scary because if you're right, if it's possible that second clause in I guess verse 20 there, verse 19. If that's part of the person, that quotation of the person that's wrong, that actually connects showing works or showing your faith by works as part of the clause where it's clearly, we all would agree that is, the demons believe also in shudder. Like if that's supposed to be the wrong part or the way that someone's getting it wrong, and you throw that other part. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, yes.
Yeah,
And-
that's
Okay, so
exactly
hang on. So
and-
hang on. I got a joke because this has been, it's been,
so at this point,
We are confused. They just maybe they just read and didn't understand the passage. That's all
well,
people do.
right, yeah. So Jamie and Quavo in this particular
You
video,
just
they seem to be being convinced by my presentation.
yeah,
So
you're just
CJ is going.
yeah, you are just reading it and explain it in that context, and then they just realize that they don't understand what they read. They just know now.
Right, right.
Oh, or by that time.
So
Ja-
CJ is going to try to draw the people back because he's recognizing on his show that the
Yeah.
people are being convinced of this argument.
yeah.
So let's see how he does it. I know I already studied this, but he's going to use anecdotes, he's going to use analogies,
Analogy again.
and he's going to try to argue from the text that
So
that these are illustrations.
So the cyclone, he is spiritually blinded.
Okay.
going on for a while.
Because
so I just wanna
everything
jump in here before
everything
we
is agreeing
go
with
too
you.
far in.
Everybody there except him is agreeing with you, but he is trying to pull up because of his worldly thoughts.
Well, he has a pre-understanding of what he's been exposed to.
Yeah,
Well, we all have that. We all have that.
I know, I know that we all of that. So he is exposed, but he don't want to learn new ones.
Okay.
Sorry. bro.
Because
Okay.
I think there's a couple problems with this interpretation. If I just
So as he's talking, I'm going to do my best from right now to answer the problems that he's going to bring up. And I don't remember exactly what I say in the video to respond, but I'll try to respond now, even though I'm kind of tired.
maybe bold with it. First and foremost, I think that you've kind of lost the point of the analogy.
He motivated by his pride. He don't want to be loose,
Okay. All right.
call it
Yeah,
loser.
yeah, we got that part, Janet. So what he's saying right here, he says he thinks that he thinks that I missed the point of the analogy for my theology. And that rhymes, that's good. That makes me sound like a rapper, right? So he's gonna focus on the analogy because he thinks my theology is wrong and that's affecting how I understand the analogy. Okay.
Give verse with that analogy.
Well,
let us
yeah, and see that's the thing. I'm glad you brought that up because my theology is this. There are literal, actual
actual
poor people being neglected. Okay.
poor people being neglected and neglect. Yeah.
But when he breaks this down, and I'm sure he recognizes that this is a real situation, but when he breaks it down, he makes it just sound like it's an illustration. But the thing is that even when you have an illustration, that doesn't mean the illustration is not true. The illustration could be of something that's really happening, or it's something that could possibly happen. So just calling it an illustration doesn't illustrate, or even prove a point. Because what an illustration does is it paints a picture to the point that you already make. All right, so here we go.
For sake of a theology, if I could just put it as plainly as I see it, unfortunately.
What analogy?
And so let me kind of.
So you see what I did? I say, what analogy? Like, okay, you just made an assertion. And if you make an assertion, I'm going to challenge you on that. And like, okay, what analogy? So let's find out what analogy.
Given a perfect example of what I mean by that, right? So we see
He's going to give an example of what he means by analogy. So let's see if he does.
here he says, and let me see where exactly the start where he says, let's see. So at verse 14, he starts, "What doth it profit a man, my brethren, though a man say he hath faith and have not works? Can faith save him? If a brother or sister be naked and destitute of daily food." No,
Now, don't pay attention to any of this right here because I was trying to open up Final Destiny and I accidentally opened up the Lexham Bible Dictionary. So while he's talking, I'm trying to search for something in Final Destiny, but I had the wrong resource pulled up.
notice that now, so he made a point, right? Now he's giving an analogy to try and prove the point, right? So it's not that he's saying that this is the point. You've actually completely flipped this around. He's not
So this is what he's saying. The structure is, he said, can that faith save? So that's the point. And he's taking this as positional. And then he has illustrations of why no, that faith cannot save
Yeah, faith cannot save.
positionally.
It should have object of your faith.
But it, yeah, and the thing is that he's saying I missed the point. That even if you want to make it as pointing back, it's pointing back to the idea of being useful to others and also saving from temporal judgment, which I talked about. So here we go.
saying verse 15 is the point. Verse 14 is the point. He's giving an analogy in the next verses coming up to try and
Well, you
prove to
didn't let
why
me
verse
finish,
14
so I don't know if we're going to differ or not, honestly. So you might see my point there is that he cut in to my explanation because he felt like I was talking for a long time. It's not my fault it takes a long time to explain James
And then
chapter 2.
And then how about him? He is explaining about
Analogies and
analogy
antidotes.
too long and very long, and then it doesn't make any sense about salvation. He is just a
Yeah.
Well, there's already been a few things that I definitely have differed with, though, if I may. So, like, because when you're saying here that the whole point is supposed to be the application.
when you are saying it, you're just reading you just read the James, and then why he is refuting James' book.
Well, I understand that argument, Janet, but from his perspective, he thinks I'm reading it from my understanding and not from actually what James is teaching.
But it's
I know, I understand.
it's not make any sense. But your explanation, I know that you're my husband, but it doesn't mean like that. It's just you explained clearly. That's why all those people that's in there 1, 2, 3 are agreeing with you, because the same thing, they have open-minded, they have open
Right, but the video's not over yet. So let's just see if his explanation is better than mine.
Faith, right? I think that
No.
completely flips around the analogy that James is actually making. James's point is verse 14, and then he's proving his point by way of argument in verses 15 through 19. And then reiterating it again in verse 20, right? He then goes on to again make another argument for the point in verse 21 and forward.
And see the making 14 the point. Why you starting there? Before that, it talked about pure religion and judging and partiality and all of that. So I think you need to start with the beginning of the book and read the flow and see what James is actually talking about so that you can understand what type of salvation is in view.
Yeah.
Okay, but where are you taking, where are you saying the diatribe begins and ends? That's what I want to understand, because I haven't even got. See, because what I'm trying to do right now is I'm trying to take him back to the point when he interrupted me, you know?
Yeah, he thought that he wondered you.
Right. So the thing is that I
He's
want to
trying-
know now, how does he view the diatribe?
Yeah.
So let's listen. Not to this part yet, but I want to know, where are you saying the diatribe begins and ends? Where do you put the quotation marks?
Well, I wouldn't know in particular where to put the quotation marks exactly. I know that the English
No,
Bibles
you're not.
are near unanimous.
So he doesn't know.
He doesn't
Okay.
know. Yeah, he doesn't know because what his response is nonsense of what you're talking about.
Right. Well, this
So-
is he doesn't know because he's basically saying I don't read the original languages. I don't study the Greek. Okay.
Yeah, he doesn't
Now
know.
he does word studies and things like that, and he's being honest. But what he's going to do here is he's going to appeal to translations. All right. And then when you appeal to translations, you're like, well, wait a minute. Yeah, a lot of translations put the quotes there, but what about the ones that don't put it there? How do you evaluate them?
Yeah, and asawa ko, hey,
Huh.
I'm just worried about your sleeping, okay?
Yeah,
Just
well, this would be the last video. It'll be fine. I'll be going to sleep after this one.
They know more about the Greek than I do. So I would just kind of go ahead and trust them on that. Honestly, to be clear, I do kind of have a little bit of an issue with that too. Like when you start saying, well, it's possible, right? It's like, well, that's, a lot of people say it's possible that this, that, or the other thing, but I'm not really a fan of it's possible.
Right, but I teach inductive Bible study methods, and so what we do in observation is we consider the possibilities and we narrow it down to the probabilities. I'm saying based on the Greek structure, a diatribe, it's very possible. But there is a traditional argument within free grace, and they basically say it like this. They say, well, the passage is saying that your belief in monotheism is no use to anybody else. You need to apply the law, the scriptures that you have, because that's what's used to anybody else. But I always remind people, demons cannot get saved. So whenever people try to say, well, even the demons believe and tremble, and that therefore salvation by facts, supernatural facts is not enough, you can't use the example of demons and try to say that human faith in Christ, that is a supernatural revelation, is the same thing. It doesn't work that way, because demons, or angels in particular, were never given salvation, and they never have the opportunity for salvation.
yeah.
And so it's not the same thing. Right. So my point is the passage is not positional.
Yes.
And stay in the state, even if the person, regardless how you take the diatribe, even the demons believe and tremble. The purpose of that is not to make a statement about positional salvation. So regardless of how you look at it, and I have resources where we could go in and look at the exegesis for this particular passage and the basis for it. But I just want that to be understood, that this book is all about experiential sanctification. The only reason that somebody would read positional salvation into this passage is because Luther used it, and other people during that time used it as a way to counter the claims of the Catholic Church. Oh, well, you're teaching justification by faith, and now the people are going to do whatever they want. And he's like, yeah, but that salvation is by faith, but the faith that's saved is never alone, and that type of thing like that. It was a response to an accusation rather than a careful exegesis of the text.
See, and I would definitely have disagreement there. So let me go through a couple things here then, and going to continue, right? So he makes a argument that he's starting with here in verse 14, right? And it's not the only argument that he's starting with. It's not like it's just coming out of the blue, right? But he's pivoted slightly from what he's talking about in verse 13 to now a new thing. Obviously, you can actually even see that demonstrated in the Bible that you were pulled up, right? Where it has the title there of faith and works, right? To try and show, hey, there is a little bit of a differentiation between what's being talked about here and what's being talked about here, right? And so he says, what doth it profit, brethren, though a man say he hath faith, my brethren, right? Though a man say he hath faith and have not works, can faith save him, right? So he's made a point. This is his argument. He's asking the question, obviously, rhetorically. If a man says he has faith that has no works, can that faith save him?
Save him from what?
Well, hang on. Okay. So then he starts to make an argument to try and give by argument of analogy, which is the Bible's favorite way of arguing, right? To show why it is that this faith can't save him. He says, if a brother or sister be naked and destitute of daily food, and one of you say to them, depart in peace, be ye warmed and filled, notwithstanding ye give them not those things which are needful to the body, what doth it profit? Even so, faith, if it hath not works, is dead, being alone, right? He says that this faith is like you going out and saying, be warmed to a man who is cold outside. If it is alone without works, is dead, right? He's literally saying your faith, if it doesn't actually have some.
And so he's seeing a comparison, right?
Yeah, his faith is not his
But
faith.
he needs to go all the way back to the end of chapter 1. Pure
Yeah.
religion is this, given to widows and orphans and walking spotless in the world. No.
Fruit is comparable to you going outside to a man in the cold who's naked and saying, be warm, without actually giving him a blanket, right?
Okay.
That's his, well, hang on, because then he reiterates it again, right? Yea, a man may say, thou hast faith and I have works. And notice the interesting statement he says here. He says, show me thy faith without thy works, which he's obviously speaking rhetorically because you can't do so. And I will show you my faith by my works. In other words, he's saying, you show me your faith minus works, which of course is impossible, and I'll show you my faith by my works, and we'll see who wins. Then he makes yet another point. And you said that, well, devils can't actually have salvation, so that's clearly not what this means. If I may be frank, sir, you've completely robbed James of any meaning here when you say that, because James is the one who uses the analogy, look, thou believest that there is one God. Well, thou doest well. That's a good thing. But even the devils believe that.
So what he does is he says that I robbed James of meaning.
Yeah, I got you. I
But
heard.
but what he means is that anytime an interpretation is anytime I interpret a passage different than how he interprets it, I'm stealing from James the meaning. You know, I'm not being true to the meaning. I'm doing eisegesis rather than exegesis. That's his accusation.
that
Mm.
and tremble. But wilt thou know, O vain man, that faith without works is dead? So notice he's made now 3 different arguments to reiterate the point. And then he makes yet another argument. Was not Abraham our father justified by works? Now we know because of Hebrews, right? We take the Bible in totality, tota scriptura. We know
So
because of
it
Hebrews
doesn't mean
he
that
did by
Abraham,
faith.
but it doesn't mean that Abraham saved because of his work.
Right. It's experiential justification.
Yes. She's
Came
just
first. We're saved by faith, and I even
Yes,
go as far as to
it's-
say the work
it's just
of
distraction, you know?
Yeah.
the
It's
result.
just
of the
distraction.
Spirit in us.
Distraction
But
and
what
so
does
much
he say?
distraction.
Was not Abraham our father justified by works? And of course, Hebrews says the same thing. By faith, Abraham did such and such.
This
a thing.
nonsense, I don't want to listen.
Was
to
Abraham
it.
not our father justified by works when he offered Isaac his son upon the
irritated
altar?
against
Seest
that.
thou how faith
You got
wrought
4
with
minutes.
his works? In other words, what's the point? Saving faith
Explanation is
creates
nonsense.
change in you,
All
right?
right,
It's
all
not
right.
the simple acceptance of facts. It is actually something, and he presents 4 different arguments. to
He
try
is
and-
wrong.
True saving.
I understand that, Janet, but if we don't show people why he's wrong, then people will assume he's right. It's not enough for us to say he's wrong or he's irritable. We have to give explanations to the people to evaluate things.
Genuine saving faith does actually create a change in you. And of course, I even provided another one earlier, right? Talking about the difference between just wanting somebody's affection, and so you
Right.
buy it with a coffee or something like that,
That's a
versus
present.
genuinely loving somebody. And so you do the different things. It's the same kinds of things, but with a completely different motivation, right?
But see, the thing is in 127, it's not drawn an analogy. These people are actually, I mean, as you read the rest of the book of James, it's talking about whenever a person comes in, don't give them the best seats. You know, it's pulling from Jesus's language right here, and he's talking about given to widows and orphans. I followed the explanatory clauses, and then the only thing that's in danger about salvation is the temporal judgment right here. For judgment will be merciless, the one who shown mercy and triumphs over judgment. Then when you get to the end of the book of James, at the very end, James 5, right? When he's bringing this imprecatory. So because I use James 1 and James 5, and I think maybe James 4, he's fixing to say that I left the context of James 2. But you got to understand a section of scripture in light of the book as a whole, you know.
What are people so
Statements of judgment right here. He says this down here. My brethren, if any of you strays from the truth, and one turns him back, let him know that he who turns a sinner from the error of his ways will save his soul from death and will cover a multitude of sins. Despite what the evangelist tells you, this is not saying that if you evangelize, you're going to save someone's soul and all that. This is referring to the responsibility to restore a brother. So the word salvation hardly ever is used in James, not positionally, but it's used experientially so that they don't face temporal wrath. Because in James chapter 4, the preceding section, it talks about how the Lord responds. He's talking about the conflicts and the lust that you have and not praying for the right reasons. And then he says, you adulterers, do you not know that friendship with the world is hostility toward God? Therefore, whoever wishes to be a friend of the world makes himself the enemy of God. Or do you think the scripture to no purpose? He says he jealously desires the spirits which he made to dwell in us. And then he talks about humbling yourself and giving grace to God. So he's talking about divinely disciplining them if they don't apply their Christianity, if they don't watch their tongue, if they're not watching them, especially the ones that are not, shouldn't be many teachers, as James talks about as well. And I would like to get into some of the exegetical stuff for it. You, far as about Abraham, it depends where you're talking about, because yes, Abraham believed, but the passage that's in the scripture in Genesis 15:6, and I've written a Hebrew paper on it, that passage is not positional. That's experiential. And that passage in Genesis 15, it's talking about how he believed the promise that he would receive an heir. There's nothing salvific in that. And then there, of course, there's other passages that talk about justification and imputation and all of that, and context determines what it is. Now, most people will make the argument that these are positional passages, and the reason being it's because how they use the Old Testament and the New Testament, or how they think it's being used.